Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you game 3 in a best of 5 between Verratti and Gonzo in the grand final of the second European tournament. So today we are seeing Pointe, and on the Allied side Verratti has chosen the first SSB. And on the Axis side, Gonzo has in his hands the first SS-Panzer. So we are seeing two more different divisions, and that is awesome. So far we've had the 2nd Armoured French versus the 2nd Panzer, and the Demi Brigade SAS versus the 21st Panzer. So we have 6 different divisions in the first 3 games in the semi-final, and that is something that I didn't expect to see. I thought these players would have their favourites and they would try to stick to those. But not the case. And seeing Verratti on the first SSB is probably the first time I've done so, but I would not be surprised if he does still know the strengths and weaknesses of the SSB and will play around those. So that means bringing in the Shermans early on, relying on those over AT because you don't have any AT guns until the late game, and also getting good value for money out of your infantry, which is something that Verratti does very, very well with his divisions in general. But on the side of Gonzo, the first SS is definitely a strong division. Not one, again, that I've seen Gonzo play very often, but certainly has a lot of strengths. It has the Volksdeutsche availability in Phase A, supported by the Stugs. It has an abundance of different fire support weapons. You can see that I think Gonzo's placed down a Flammpanzer here. He's got the 232s to support him. So a really nice sort of versatile lineup early on. Again, the SS-Panzer don't really rely on AT guns early on, they rely on their Stugs. So there is that problem, especially against things like Shermans, if Shermans do get the upper hand against your Stugs. But we'll have to wait and see if that becomes the case, because at close range, the Sherman 2s, especially like moving around the edge of a tree line, for example, they should have the advantage because they have better aim time. But if Gonzo micros it correctly, keeps the Stug facing, then the Stug can probably almost match it as it comes round. So in a defensive scenario, the Stug's not too bad off. But in an offensive scenario, the Stug will lose because it will most likely have its side armor facing as it comes around the corner. That is the problem with using the Stugs in general. But let's have a look at some of these units going down. So on the side of Verratti, it's going to be some Commando units for the bottom side. You've got the Commando tank busters there. These could be anything. It could be Commando 6, could be Commando assaults, could be Commando supports. So yeah, we'll have to just wait until those unload. But then we have the Commando tank busters there, Commando leader with the Sherman 2. So there is going to be a Sherman 2 early on. Then an AA piece for the top side. Maybe Verratti is expecting Gonzo to utilize a recon early on, and if he does for the top side, then that could cause Gonzo to see the lack of defenses, which is why Verratti's most likely invested in that. He could also use it to kill off infantry that's attacking. It is a Bofors, so it will pin them down quite quickly, but won't do too much damage. So we'll keep units at bay regardless. Let's have a look at Gonzo's lineup. So a large amount of forces for the mid here. It's going to be the 222 with the Aufklärer, 232 with the command, multiple Volksdeutsche with a Flammpanzer, and then the Stug following up. On the bottom side, it's going to be Volksdeutsche and a Panzergren, and then 2 Panzergrens for the top side. So Gonzo letting his more elite infantry take up the defense where there is less troops, and then using the Volksdeutsche to support his armoured vehicles in the push, which definitely makes more sense because these Panzergrens can take care of themselves more often than not. But it does look like the Sherman 2 is going to be coming up against the Stug early on. If not, then the Sherman 2 will be able to just annihilate a lot of these forces. The 222 is getting very aggressive. It's going to go down straight away. The Sherman 2 hits that shot. All of the Volksdeutsche forced to unload And that's left the Sherman 2 in a really good position to pin these down. There's going to be the Wildcat coming in as well. This was something that I failed to mention with the SSB, is they're really strong air force. They do have these Wildcats that have the 2 5 HE power bombs, and they can reload those very quickly indeed. Stoke here is trying to get on target to some of these infantry squads, but the Flampanzer there coming around the corner is not in line of sight of the Sherman 2, but is doing a ton of damage to the Fusilier Marines and already killed off the tank busters. The machine guns pinned down the commando support. This Flampanzer is doing work. However, the Stug has got line of sight onto the Sherman 2. That's going to be a bailout. First shot. Stug does the job. Stug wins the duel, and Gonzo's put himself in a fantastic position, winning that engagement. Now the Flampanzer is safe for now and can run down this infantry, and already has done so. Now Commando 6 will be able to prevent the push from the Volksdeutsche, but they'll want to stay out of line of sight of these vehicles as well. So they'll probably breach through and run away for the time being. But with the Sherman 2 going down, that is going to potentially give a lot of ground to Gonzo here if he finds a salient. At the moment though, Verratti pushing on the top side with his Willys MMGs, and that is giving him a +1. Here comes that salient though, and that will soon disappear. So the Bofors that was brought in, it has been revealed, the 232 is going to be taking shots, but not too effective. Generally AP value is pretty decent against AA. But as soon as this Flampanzer gets into range, that should clean things up nicely. It can also fast move up this road, so Gonzo's in a really nice position to completely exploit his own vehicles and make a lot of ground. But I think it was almost Verratti's mistake for having his Sherman in like an open area amongst all of these trees, when he could have very easily had it sort of maybe fast move all the way down to behind these trees, or maybe had it come in on the bottom side and fast move up towards this house, so that he could sort of ambush this road a bit better. So the positioning of that Sherman was awkward, hence why the Stoke had the advantage. The Commando 6 though, they've been found to get slammed by those double MG42s. The Commando supports, they're dead, and the Volksdeutsche, they're going to surrender the AA there. So that is a lot of points lost for Verratti early on. And he's going to have to contain this push as best he can, and then try and use the Sherman 2 to clean up a lot of these vehicles, because currently he's just being ran over by this Flampanzer. It's just driving around, finding all of his units and killing them off. Now the tank busters here, they could be used to ambush the Stug 3. Stug 3 is currently within 200 meter range of this tree line, so if the Commando tank busters beat the Volksdeutsche or the Aufklärer to this position, then they will be able to ambush that. On this bottom side, Commando 6 still being forced back. Volksdeutsche have found Commando leader here, and the Flampanzer are going to be looking to take those out. Does get the flamethrower on target. That's another unit swept up by the Flampanzer. Very nice indeed. Wildcat. It looks like Gonzo's going to try and prevent those from bombing anymore, and has brought in the SDKF Z7-2. Doesn't want those bombing strikes to pin down his units. However, it does seem like Gonzo spotted the Commando tank busters, possibly. Yeah, so he is backing off with his Stug 3, and he's got a Volksdeutsche ready to just charge those down. Sherman 2, that's taking shots at the Flampanzer, has been left out in the open. The Sherman 2's got plenty of time to get another shot off before it gets into cover. That is going to be the fuel explosion. Flampanzer is finally dealt with. The Volksdeutsche, they take care of the tank busters and now can push through quite freely. The Stug can be happy to move up. Panzergren's on the bottom side, getting the better of the Willys MMG. However, the Willys MMG does have a longer range than the Volksdeutsche, so the Volksdeutsche will have to be careful if they let that engagement continue. But here comes the 232 rushing down some Fusilier Marines. Verratti just can't afford to bring anything on its own right now, because it does have the potential to just be rushed like this. And Gonzo is currently holding on to a +1 with 57% territory lead. There goes a Fusilier Marines. Another unit of tank busters is on its way though, and this could get very close indeed. And that could be a dead 232 if Gonzo is not too careful. The more infantry has come up for the top side. We've got another commando leader assisting the Sherman 2 and the Commando 6 squad. And there's a new Commando Fusilier Marine joining the Commando Tank Busters on the main road. So I think Verratti's just trying to hold on to this top side because he's definitely lost control on the bottom. And what's going to be required is basically Verratti either surrounding this and cutting it off, or picking off these units one by one with his tank busters. So the Commando 6, they're going to be taking on the SS-Volksdeutsche, and they will win at that range. The SS-Volksdeutsche will suffer to that Lee Enfield sniper rifle. Like, it does pin down very, very quickly indeed. So that's an engagement that Gonzo's going to want to avoid. But with the Flammpanzer on the way, that could do the job, but it's going to get smashed by the Commando Tank Busters, and they stop that from happening. And I mentioned having to like pick off the units one by one with the Commando Tank Busters, and that's just what Verratti's done. So if he continues to do this as the units try and get back to help out, then he will be in a really good position. Now, apologies about the camera work there, I have no idea what was going on. I just decided to jump around a little bit. But yeah, the Stug 3 and the 232 in a pretty awkward situation. They do have the infantry support for the time being, this one taking out a Willys MG on the bottom side. However, the more that these run away from the armoured support, the more likely they are to be killed, leaving these guys very, very, very vulnerable. So that's something that Verratti's got to work on for the rest of the game. But meanwhile, Gonzo is going to be building up that lead with the 258, 59 points to his name. Now, as we move into Phase B, I think Gonzo's lead's only going to increase for the time being, because he will gain access to things like Panthers, not that they're really going to be very effective on a map like this, but he also gains access to like his abundance of infantry, which Verratti won't necessarily have, since it seems as though he's already used up the majority of his elite infantry, and many of it is being surrendered to Gonzo's infantry. Like this Sturmpioneer just ran down those Fusilier Marines, and now the Tank Busters are dead as well. Further down, we do see an engagement between the Panzergrens and the Commando Supports. Commando Supports coming out on top, mainly due to veterancy, I would assume. And if we zoom all the way out, we can see that this salient is still a huge problem, and Gonzo does kind of have the entrance to this salient defended by a few units, so it's not like this is going to go anywhere anytime soon. It's going to be quite difficult for Verratti to completely surround this. So he needs to definitely go for that strategy where you pick off the units one by one. So the Volksdeutsche here, they are going to be taking on the Commando 6. There is going to be a Ju-87 coming in though. That is looking for the shot onto the Sherman 2. Verratti sees it coming. Can he get that into cover in time? He cannot. The Sherman 2 goes down. And that is not good news for Verratti at all, because he definitely needs that to try and take out the 232 and the SDKFZ here and the Panzerjäger Stug. Like, those are targets for that Sherman 2. Otherwise, he's very reliant on tank busters, and tank busters have to be quite passive. They have to ambush their opponents. So that is a real big problem for Gonzo, or for Verratti, sorry. Verratti's going to have to find those ambushes, and that's something that Gonzo is less than likely to fall for in the most part. Okay, so this AA really causing issues. Double Wildcat there trying to come through and take out the Ju-87, can't quite make it. With the placement of this SDKFZ, it's right smack bang in the middle, and that's really a problem for Gonzo. But look at that, the 232, that's now gone. Was supporting the Stug, but I guess Gonzo would rather lose a 232 to a Tank Buster squad than his actual Stug 3. Or on the bottom side, Volksdeutsche, those machine guns, very, very powerful. Like, regardless of the fact that Volksdeutsche are disheartened, they still have a lot of firepower at their disposal at range. Pioneers, they are trying to get the better of the commando leaders, but commando leaders are definitely good at close range. They have 12 HE to their name with the HE grenade, so The Stern Pioneers will not want to continue that engagement, but as the commando leader comes out of the smoke, it gets wrecked by the Panzer Grands. And I was saying that Gonzo did a good job to secure his salient, but it looks like it's just being cut off briefly. Still providing him the territory. He's basically connecting it through here, and he has too many units to really crush it entirely. But still. Double Wildcat going to be coming in on the top side for the bombing strikes onto the 232. They didn't quite land on target, so that's not going to be a kill. But this Panzer Grand, that's now been pinned down by the Commando 6 squad. Big 3 did take a shot from the Centaur. And now we're in phase B. Well, more Shermans are available. But that's going to be a track will destroy. That is disappointed micro there from Verratti. The Stug 3 surely just going to get the upper hand in this engagement. Although Verratti's going to be pushing forwards with the Centaur so that the Stug 3 comes under a lot of pressure. Now, Gonzo needs to make sure that this is targeting the Sherman 5. He needs to pin this down before he engages the Centaur. Because otherwise, he's just going to get 2v1'd like this. Which is not good. So, the Stug 3 beaten back for the time being. The Volksdeutsche did take out the Commando Tank Busters. And it looks like Verratti here, he's going to try and run down the Stug with some infantry. Something I have failed to mention so far is that Verratti's infantry does look like it's going to be surrounded sometime soon, but if it's cut off it doesn't matter because it's airborne units. That's what the wings are. It doesn't suffer from the morale penalty of being surrounded because they are airborne units technically. The 232 there, that's going to get taken out by the Commando Tank Buster as it tries to make some ground, and here comes the Ju-87 once again to try and clean up the Centaur and the Sherman 5. So the Stug has got the better of these Royal Marines most likely. Double Wildcat's going to try and prevent that Ju-87 from landing the strike, and does so. Now we see the Focke-Wulf 190 coming in. Not sure if that's going to be able to get the job done, and one thing we have to note is that Gonzo no longer has his AA in the mid since it was killed by the Commando 6 and the sniper there. Gonzo definitely wants to take out this Wildcat. He's not going to be able to defend his Ju-87, and personally I think keeping the Ju-87 alive is a better decision than trying to kill one Wildcat, because that Ju-87 is quite costly, and also just by bringing in some more AA in the future you could definitely sort of win an air engagement once again with your Focke-Wulf. The Focke-Wulf might be picking up 2 kills here. It depends if it's fast enough. I'm not entirely sure it is. But as you can see, Gonzo's push has kind of fallen apart. The Volksdeutsche, they're being beaten up on the bottom side. These Volksdeutsche have got ahead of themselves and been pinned down. The Stug 3 is now completely surrounded, but might still kill the Centaur. Yeah, it does manage to find the kill. But yeah, a lot of Gonzo's units are all of a sudden surrounded. And this is a 57% territory lead for Verratti. Crazy how these things change. But Verratti just getting enough units in position to surround. Now it's going to be really up to Gonzo to bring in the reinforcements to fix this. And there isn't really going to be much that Verratti can do about it, because Verratti doesn't have any tank busters on this bottom side in the mid, so there's no AT basically, and that means the Panzer IV is quite free to just charge on through and basically bring the front line back to the Volksdeutsche and Panzergrands, which will then swing the map entirely back in favour of Gonzo. But look at this, the Stug 3, it's surrounded by Royal Marines. They are planning to take him down, and they most likely will do so. There goes another Piat. Will it get the job done? No, it will not. Of course it will not. It's a Piat. The only reason Commando Tank Busters hit anything is because they have 2 Piats. And, well, saying that, the Royal Marines get the job done eventually. Otherwise, that would have just been a straight-up surrender. This Volksdeutsche still pinned down behind enemy lines, will not be recovering anytime soon. But as you can see here, with the Panzer IV coming through, cleaning up the Commando 6 and that Commando Assault Squad, well, we're +1 back in favour of Gonzo, just like I mentioned. Commando Tank Buster, they are going to be found and killed off. Panzergrands here, taking up the front line once again. Wow. I don't think we've seen territory move as much in any other game in this tournament. Like, the way it just swung all the way in favour of Verratti and then all the way back in like no time at all. Crazy stuff. Sturm Pioneers do go down in the mid, but Gonzo has a really strong position here because these Sherman 5s, yes, they're decent at close range, but the Panzers are actually pretty decent as well, especially if they get the extra veterancy from like a nearby command. I think the Panzer IV can definitely win against an unvetted Sherman 5, because the Panzer IV-H at least has the improved aim time, whereas the Panzer IV-J does not. So the Panzer IV-J is going to want to like control the road and like keep a max range, whereas the Panzer IV-H can kind of get up close and personal just like a Sherman would. Now the Sherman's still got a better aim time, so we've got to think of that, but it's less likely to hit because it's got the less veterancy. Wildcat coming in again with the bombing strike. These haven't done too well throughout the game so far. Focke-Wulf 190 is trying to take that down. We'll take a few shots from the 50 cals, but Gonzo not going to commit to shooting down the Wildcat, because if he gets too close to the spawn and another aircraft comes in, it will just be straight up shot down most likely, especially with the timing that Verratti will know how to utilize. So 251, that's going to be trying to find the infantry that is behind enemy lines. Panzer IV now taking on the Sherman 5. That's going to be the commando leader. They've got the 20 HE power grenade next to the half track there. It was not successful, so the machine gun just going to be able to get to work. Panzer IV is currently backing off, probably until it recovers, and then we'll want to engage Sherman 5 again. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, Commando Assault, they have been found. The Afkleider do not want to get too close to those, otherwise they will end up in a plume of smoke. The Speed Troop, though, getting the job done with the help of the half-track. Panzer IV finding shots onto the Royal Marine briefly, as the Sherman 5 continues to be aggressive. But look at that. Gonzo's invested in a Panther G. And these Panther Gs, they have 7 accuracy, 7 base accuracy. They've got 1-star veterancy, and they also have a really decent aim time at close range because they're the Panther G variant, and that is something that Gonzo is going to be looking to exploit here in taking on the Sherman 2. But just like the first Sherman that died in this game, it is in a really awkward position at the moment, because any unit that comes around the edge of this tree line will have a longer than 500 meter range engagement, which means that either tanks are going to be much less likely to land a kill shot. But here comes the Panther G. Does take its first shot. That's going to do a lot of morale damage to the Sherman 5. Wildcat's going to be forced back. Focke-Wulf 190, that's now getting out of there. Commando supports on the bottom side are going to be surrendered. Volksdeutsche and Panzergrenz now engaging the Royal Marines here. Sherman 5 going to be trying to kill off the Panzer IV-J. Now with the Panzer IV-J having a less aim time than the Sherman 5, will be trying to take advantage of that, no doubt, but he cannot continue to push forwards until the Volksdeutsche and Panzergrenz are dealt with, so the Royal Marines will have to come back and try and deal with those. New AA is on the way. This is going to be an 88 joining the party, and an SDKZ 72 on the bottom side will be trying to help that Focke-Wulf win the engagements against the Wildcats. So, Verratti still in a pretty awkward position, and I don't think it's really going to get any better, because for every Sherman 5 that Gonzo, or that Verratti brings in, Gonzo will have probably 2 tanks. So, this isn't really going to end well. Like, Gonzo has plenty more Panzer IVs up his sleeve, plenty more Panzer IV-Js, and also probably another Panther G. And when the Sherman 5s are limited, I think, to 5 in a pack, and that's generally what the first SSB relies on, because they have just put the first 2 packs into the Sherman 2s early on. Yeah, basically, Verratti's not in a good position. The Spear Troop, they're going to be taking on the Commando Royal Marines here. The Spear Troop obviously going to lose due to the amount of Royal Marines that there are left in that squad. Volksdeutsche, Panzergrenz, engaging the Royal Marines again, but with the Sherman 5 support, that is going to be a dead Volksdeutsche squad. Panzer IV-J though, can it get the shot down the main road? It will be able to aim at the 6-pounder, but won't want to. Risking an engagement like that against an AT gun at max range is not ideal. Something you want to definitely avoid. Panzergrens, though, they're going down, and all of these squads that have been alive for a very long time are down to their last couple men, and that is allowing Verratti to clean things up and come back a little with his Royal Marines. But just in terms of infantry availability, I feel like Gonzo does have the upper hand, especially in Phase C, where Gonzo can get, I think, an 8 card of Volksdeutsche, and the Volksdeutsche are still really good at like taking on Royal Marines at max range. The Royal Marines are only really good at close range for the most part because they have the 3-Sten guns and the Lee Enfields, and the Bren gun is never really good at performing at long range. The Panzer IV under fire once again. This is something that Gonzo will want to avoid, but there we go. Inevitably, after a couple shots, the 6-pounder will find the kill. And now that's going to be shoot 2 Sherman 5s, accompanied by a 6-pounder against no armor on the side of Gonzo. Now, of course, he still does have to be careful about Panzerfaust and potentially Panzerschrecks, but this is not good for Gonzo on the bottom side. Now, what Gonzo has managed to do is get a Panzerschreck right up next to this Sherman 5, and this is why you need to have your tanks supported by infantry. He did have these Royal Marines in position, but due to them being forced back by the engagement with the Volksdeutsche, it's allowed the Panzerschrecks to get this close, and that's going to be a bailed out Sherman 5. No doubt we'll be able to kill that off as well. And now the Panther and Panzer IV in the mid have no armor that they're up against, and we'll be able to move forwards freely. So just like Verratti has the upper hand on the bottom side now with this double Sherman 5 push, Gonzo's going to be pushing back in the mid with the Panzer IV and the Panther G. So the territory will likely stay the same, regardless if Verratti makes ground down here now. Those Panzergrens, they're going to be mopped up nice and quick. That's a lot of 50 cal and 30 cal fire. After pinned down, although they may not be spotted if Gonzo is lucky. Pioneer Fjerde, they're also pinned down, but the Sherman 5s, they don't really care. I think they'll just leave all of this infantry to be mopped up by his own infantry rather than the Sherman 5s. The Sherman 5s will be looking to push through as fast as possible. Saying that, Gonzo has a plan. He's bringing in a Panther D, and with the first SS-Panzer, the Panther Ds only cost 200 points. So if he uses this like an AT gun at range, these Shermans won't be going anywhere, at least past this tree line, because the Panther will have more than enough time to aim at that range. On the top side, 3-inch mortar, that actually took out the 88 nice and quick, allowing the Staghound to push very aggressively. On this very top side, Tank Buster's taking out one of those half tracks. But yeah, Gonzo has this salient at his disposal in the mid. He's actually managed to capture a duck as well with a basically full supply, so I'm not quite sure what happened there. Maybe it was planning to head to the 3-inch mortar and ended up driving the wrong way. But Gonzo, he's going to lose one of his Shermans to the Panther D. 257 did take a shot from the Shermans, but manages to get out of the way. Volksdeutsche are going to be bombed by the Wildcats again, and I think one thing that Gonzo's done very well throughout this game is he's made it really awkward for Verratti to use those Wildcats, because generally the SSB, if they're allowed to utilize those and bomb with them regularly, they can be very oppressive onto the front line. But in this case, with them being forced back by AA all the time, even if they are getting their bombs off, it takes them longer to reload if they take a little bit of damage, and that's making a lot of difference here. So the infantry's been cleaned up on the bottom side by Verratti. Sherman 5 will be looking for the engagement with the Panther at some point, especially as soon as the 17-pounder starts firing away. 17-pounder has that extra 3 AP over the 13 armor of the Panther D, so definitely potential for a kill, and that's going to be a track will damage, allowing the Sherman 5 to push forwards and get aggressive. But I'm not sure if Verratti's seen the 88 yet, because this 88 may put this Sherman 5 to bed if he's not too careful. On the top side, infantry push from Gonzo did seem to be going quite well. These Bren group were struggling to hold them back, but with the Centaur getting involved, that's made things a bit awkward. Panzer IV H is on the scene though. Can it find the kill? It cannot. Focke-Wulf 190 is going to be strafing the Staghound to stop that engaging at close range. But yeah, with that Panther D gone and the 88 now on the field, I think Gonzo is going to be still managing to hold this regardless, because the 17 pounder doesn't have any HE to engage an 88, whilst the 88 can engage the 17 pounder. That's one of the Wildcats forced back already. Volksdeutsche finding and finally cleaning up these Royal Marines in the back line. But look at this, Panzer IV, that's been forced back. I think that was a 3-inch mortar there used with the Centaur and the Staghound, just to push back that Panzer IV. I think there would be potential here for a kill. The Sherman 5 is actually just zooming straight up the road here, regardless of the fact there could be like a Panzerschreck or something in these buildings. I think Verratti just doesn't have time to even think about that right now, because there is 12 minutes and 45 seconds left on the clock, and Gonzo's at 1,500 points, so Verratti, he's going to need +2, +3 to win this game at this point. The 88 is getting involved on the bottom side. The Volksdeutsche there taking out one of those AT guns. 257 still trying to utilise its mortar to pin down some infantry squads. Panzer IV taking that engagement with the Sherman 5 is just going to want to keep retreating if it can. Get out of line of sight sooner than later. New Panther D is replacing the one that died on the bottom side. So for now, Gonzo is maintaining control. But this has been actually a really close game, especially between two divisions that are quite different to one another. But Verratti's had just enough Sherman 5s available that he's holding on to the map at the moment, because these Sherman 5s, they do work quite well at close range, like I mentioned previously. And with the amount of Sherman 5s that have come in, it makes me wonder whether or not Verratti brings in 2 cards of the Sherman 5s, which may be the case, and then relies on like 2 in Phase A. I can't remember if you get 2 cards of 2 M4 in Phase A, or you can get 2 cards of 1 M4s, because if it was 2 cards of 1 M4, then you would only have 1 card of Sherman 5s. Either way, Bren Group, they're going to be pinned down. Panther G engaging those Bren Group as well. Poor Bren Group just don't stand a chance. Double Focke-Wulf 190 going to be strafing the Staghound to prevent that from making too much ground against his Panzergrens. These Volksdeutsche though, they are toast as they get absolutely mullered by the Sherman 5. Gonzo's going to have to find a way to deal with this Sherman 5 that's pushing up the mid here. Hopefully the Panzer IV can find the kill for him. No, it cannot. Sherman 5 actually returns the kill onto the Panzer IV. And we're back to 50-50 for the time being. And this Panther G, it's under pressure. That's the Sherman 5 engaging at close range. Doesn't matter how good your tank is when you get engaged at that sort of range. Panther G goes down, Sherman 5 gets the job done. And that is going to open up the middle of the map. Now the Panzer IV's got a lot of work to do. The Panzerschreck here has been found behind enemy lines. That will be engaged by the Bren Group. Verratti secures his duck once again. Captures back that supply. And now we'll be looking for the engagement onto the Panzer IV. Panzer IV might be able to get the better of the Sherman 5 since it is reloading. Okay, Verratti's not going to allow that engagement to occur whilst that is the case. Panzerschreck, that's going to find the bailout though onto the Sherman 5 that was getting aggressive. Centaur trying to push through the Volksdeutsche. You can see Verratti is trying very, very hard right now to try and make some ground. But the Sherman 4, it does find the kill onto the Panzer 4 after it reloaded. Really, really awesome stuff here from Verratti. He does have like 160 points per minute at his disposal. So you can see him just investing in like any form of armor that he has to try and make ground quickly. So the Staghound recons coming in, the Staghound AAs to support those and pin down infantry. Like, this is crazy. Verratti really going to be trying very hard here to find a victory, but he needs like a +3 for sure, maybe even a +4 to get to the 1,600 points in time, because it's 9 minutes and of course the counter is always going down. Sherman 5 going to be hitting those Volksdeutsche very hard, cleaning up those. Bren Group, Royal Marines pushing on through, and as much as I hate to say it, I think these Bren Group have actually been really helpful throughout this game. I was mentioning how I think Gonzo would have more infantry availability moving into the late game. I mean, he does still have loads of infantry coming in, but I think these Bren group have allowed Verratti to sort of hold on to the front line where he otherwise would not have. It's just been enough to allow his sort of infantry and tanks to find targets because the Bren group have come under fire. So that's awesome to see, and well, that's another bombing strike onto the 88, just completely overruns it, allows the Sherman 5 to get on target. Royal Marines just going to be surrendering it, and that opens up the bottom side quite significantly. Volksdeutsche, they are just going to be spread all over the place. This is that 8 card coming into play, but that's going to be a Panzer IV taking out the Centaur at close range. Can this Staghound return the kill onto the Panzer IV? We'll have to wait and see. Upper Blitz, it's going to be killed off. That halves the number of men in that Volksdeutsche squad. They're pinned down immediately. Another unit is going to be surrendered. Verratti might be able to push a +2, but finding a +3 is going to be extremely difficult. After all, it is still Pointe, and regardless of how much local superiority you have, getting past each of these tree lines is difficult. So the Volksdeutsche still holding on the bottom side. Meanwhile, Gonzo just bringing in more and more, bringing in Panzerschrecks, just setting up ambushes, making things difficult for Verratti. Does have one Panther still on the field, but having lost the other Panthers so far, it's very, very costly. And it's not like his income changes from phase B to C, so he's still working with the same amount of points. Now Verratti here trying to get up close and personal with the tank busters, but they're going to get strafed by the Focke-Wulfs, which should allow the Panzer IV to engage the Staghound and potentially take that out. Panzerschreck takes a shot at the Sherman 5 and actually misses. That is not good for Gonzo, and it looks like the Sherman 5 is going to be able to back out of range. The Panzerschreck does find itself hidden once again, but don't think Verratti is going to be falling for that twice. But just once again, like, this is what Gonzo needs to do. Just bring in these units that makes Verratti wary about pushing forwards. And with that being the case, it just makes things really difficult. And there goes the Humber Mark III. Staghound is also falling back. Panzer IV is now engaging the 3-inch mortar. So yeah, regardless of the amount of units you have moving up, regardless of the amount of units you have moving up, he just can't get past these tree lines quick enough. One thing I'm really hoping happens here is a Morris LRC kills a Panther. Please do. Please do. This Panther's going to take ages to aim. As long as it's showing front armor though, the Morris is like really unlikely to penetrate, but there's still a chance. This is crazy. Look at it go. It's like, I really want to find the rear armor. Is he going to find it? Is he going to find it? No way. Oh, he bounced off the rear armor. That's going to be a weapon jam though. Oh, transmission damage. Come on, Morris LRC. Show us what you made of. Engine stall. Still moving because of transmission damage. Crew wound. Morris LRC. Did he win? I think he did it. I think he did it. Unless that was the Royal Marines landing a Piat shot, but what a hero. Morris LRC finds the kill onto the Panther. Fantastic stuff. Gonzo still in the lead though, and now he's going to need +5 probably at this point. I think Gonzo's just straight up won this game. There's not enough time left on the clock. Volksdeutsche going to be pushing on this top side. Staghound going to be engaging the Panzer IV. AT gun now coming down the main road to make things awkward. Another AT gun coming in on the bottom side. So yeah, Verratti, amazing stuff. Like, I didn't ever expect the SSB to be this strong into the late game. But the use of these Sherman 5s to support the remainder of his infantry has been really, really nice. And the fact that he brings in like the Staghound Recons and the Staghound AAs to like support himself later on is just like so damn important to just give his push a little bit of mass. Because the good thing about Pointe is it doesn't matter how low your AP is, it's still strong at close range. So things like the Humber Mark IIIs and the Staghounds here are actually really good in this sort of scenario, and Verratti just investing in even more. And if he has any spare points, he can just put that into his Air Force. And although Gonzo still has 2 Focke-Wulf 190s hanging about, like, an abundance of aircraft from Verratti is just going to make it impossible for, like, Gonzo to win out. And, well, that Hellcat manages to get onto the back of the Focke-Wulf and shoot it down. That is one of the 2 Focke-Wulfs dealt with. Gonzo's still trying to use these to strafe and hold back the ground forces. This Focke-Wulf's going to be looking to get onto the back of the Hellcat here. Is going to be able to do so. Look at this low range, this low flight engagement here. Okay, finally gets on the back and shoots down the Hellcat. Job done. Low altitude engagement was what I was looking for. Either way, Pak 40 takes out the Humber Mark III. Still only a +2. 2 minutes and 50 seconds left. Verratti's doing just enough. Well, Gonzo's doing just enough to hold on. Brought in a couple more Stugs. He's got this Pak 40 in position. And since Verratti is unlikely to have sort of artillery so far up at this point, these Pak 40s are actually really hard to deal with. He just has to try and, like, overwhelm them, but that isn't really working out too well. Wildcat here, going to be engaged by 2 Focke-Wulfs once again. That's going to be a dead Wildcat. Morris LRC and the Sherman 5 getting off infantry on the top side here, but the Puma is going to be just trying to open up a salient on the top to gain back ground. Staghound AA will force back these Focke-Wulfs for the time being. But what an insane game this has been. I mean, I really thought when Gonzo had his salient on the bottom side, like, he'd pushed all the way through, broken the front line. Especially after Verratti pushed it back. Like, once Gonzo pushed it back again, I thought it was over. Like, Gonzo was just winning the game by far. But then the Panthers started dying, and Verratti was finding the engagements that he needed to start bringing it back. Unfortunately for Verratti, it just took a little bit too long. And that means that he is stuck in this situation whereby he has 63, 64, probably even 65% territory lead near the end of the game. That is going to be a +3, but it's still not enough to win. Like, Gonzo securing that victory in 1 minute and 10 seconds. The Puma that was making a lot of ground on the top side does get taken out by another Sherman 5. Sherman 5 in the mid though, that's going to be taken out by the Volksdeutsche. That's used up all of its Panzerfaust now. Panzer 4 on the top side will soon die. Pak 40 looking to engage the Staghound here. Staghound further down was eventually taken out, because Verratti is just charging them down. Does not care. This might even be 75%, which would be a +4. Still not enough at this point. I think if he was getting, like, this far, you know, 5 minutes ago, he would have made it. But, like, with 30 seconds left, it's just sheer determination. I think Verratti wants to make a point that it is not over in this series. These games have been so damn close. Every single one. Absolutely incredible stuff. Panzer 4 is now dead on the top side. IG does actually kill off the Humber Mark III. Here comes a Hellcat to wipe that out. I'm not sure if the bombs are going to land in time. That is the end of the game. And, well, after the full 40 minutes, Gonzo is victorious. He goes 2-1 up in this best of 5. But I don't think Verratti has finished with Gonzo just yet. Oh, it's incredible. Look how close that was. 3,860 kills to 3,835 losses. It doesn't get any better than this, guys. What a fantastic final we've had so far. Let's jump over to these kills. So the Sherman 2s, they really didn't perform early on. That was one problem that Verratti definitely had, which basically lost him a lot of the early to mid-game pressure. Then he had to start relying on these Sherman 5s, and the Sherman 5s, they did actually perform quite well. They basically allowed him to support the infantry and get the infantry into positions that allowed him to find the kills. Even like things like these AT guns. So although the Sherman 5s didn't actually like secure a lot of the kills, they enabled things like these 6-pounders and 17-pounders And then like the infantry here, like this Commander Royal Marine took out the Panther D and the Stug. And that's just because the Sherman is like pinning down all of the infantry and killing that off, allowing the Royal Marines to just freely run forwards. So that is like the main thing. These Sherman 5s later on, they started to clean house with the Panzer 4 kills and the Panther G kill there for that one Sherman 5. Morris LRC ended up killing off 3 SS Volksdeutsche. Hellcat takes down 1 Focke-Wulf towards the end, but yeah, just in general, looks like without this Sherman 2 support early on, things kind of fell apart. Gonzo found enough of a lead and held it for long enough that he found the victory. I think there's definitely 2 cards of Sherman 5s for Verratti on the first SSB, for those wondering. Either way, losses. Yeah, the Stug 3 getting the better of that Sherman 2 early on, very important. Volksdeutsche finding all of these kills onto the tank busters was also really, really important. The Ju-87 taking out the second Sherman 2. And then the Focke-Wulfs, they shot down plenty of aircraft, that's for sure. Panzer 4, that was later on, killing the Staghounds and the Staghound AAs on the top side. Yeah, most of the kills for Gonzo coming in the early game, especially with like the Flampanzer, microing that was really nice. All of the infantry, killing off the infantry of Verratti, whereas all the kills for Verratti came in the late game, as you can see. So yeah, there we go. What an amazing game. That's only the 3rd game out of what is a best of 5. If Verratti comes back and wins the next game, then we will go to the 5th game. If Gonzo wins the next game, then it will just be over and Gonzo will be victorious. So, there you have it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it as much as I have, because that was awesome. Especially the Morris LRC taking on the Panther. What an MVP. But thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.